So, my lovelies, you're literally here to keep me company for a few minutes while I work on a chart. Um, interesting stuff. So, some things to note. The next chart up I'm going to do will be a sociology class. So, we're going to be looking at these Generation Millennial, and we'll be looking at the members of the current Congress, and we're going to be looking at the eclipses, and we're going to tie all this stuff together. And this will be hosted on my channel, not Lada's, because apparently they don't like politics over there, and it invites all sorts of unfriendly discussion. And frankly, I'm tired of listening to people get mad at me because I'm not Lada. So this, our astro-political sociology discussion, we're going to save over here. But this is some interesting stuff. Go Generation Millennial. And some other things while I'm doing this. So in case you haven't noticed, things have been a little weird these last couple of days, and this is not unexpected given we just had a horrible tragedy. And there's a shift, there's a change is a coming. So there's a shift in the air. There's a groundswell that's beginning. And people are kind of like realizing everything's different now. Everything is the same and different. We are on the path of some really big new stuff. Yeah, I was warned. And apparently there are a number of vocal Trump supporters on her page. Go figure, right? The Trump doesn't like foreigners, but they're okay with, I don't know. Anyway. So it's just easier to just not go there. And it's just easier to not go there. Anyway, I know. I know. Oh my God, what was I doing? Right here. So, but yeah, so it is interesting. So one of the things that's interesting, and I'm going to do a whole video about this because this is fascinating stuff, right? The current Congress that we have, did you know that the current Congress we have, their average age represents the oldest living Congress we have ever had since the beginning of our government? Literally, our average age of Congress members right now represents an age that is far in excess and older than anybody who's ever been there before. Lots and lots of old white guys. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It is crazy. This group of Congress now that just got voted in is even older than the one that they just replaced. And that, at the time, was the oldest average Congress age that we had. So we have a bunch of old white guys that are dealing with a shifting, well, but it's true, right? I mean, come on. How much color do you see up there? Not much. And you don't see a whole lot of women. And what they're looking at is they're looking at a society that's changing before their eyes. So it's a rapidly changing power paradigm socially. And at their respective ages, which is, I think the youngest one reported was 57. That's the young one, right? I think we've got some younger ones that are in their 30s or 40s, like Tammy Duckworth, bless her heart. And a couple of others, but on an average, they're all in their 50s. And, the thing about it is, when a man gets into his 50s, unless he's taken exceptional care of himself, there are some things that are just not working the way they used to. Excuse me. So unconsciously, I think a lot of what they're doing is clinging to the last vestiges of their glory days, in a society that doesn't exist anymore. As compensation for all the other stuff that represented their manhood and virility that has pretty much, died and retired on them. Because old guys, like some old guys age beautifully. Oh my God, they get so much better after 40. I am entitled to my thoughts. And most of the time I can back it up, so I'm good with it. So the thing about it is, there are guys that hit 40 and 50. Oh my God, they're so much better after 40. You can take them to dinner. They're much better companions. They're better lovers because they're paying attention to you. It's not all about you know what I mean? But then there are the other ones that are just, they were mean when they were young. They were selfish when they were young, and they're still mean and selfish, except now they're old and wrinkly and nothing works. And those are the ones you got to watch, right? So I think we've got an entire Congress full of old guys that just don't have a lot going for them in their personal lives, so the few things that they do have left are power and control, and status in life, and they're losing that. Hi, Eva. And so I think a lot of this irrational clinging to artificial social structures that are not helping, and are not even healthy. I mean, this is some toxic mentality here. Has a lot to do with that. Now, here's what's interesting. Oh my God, this is so cool. So this generation millennial, these kids that are just graduating high school, that are giving them all this pushback and calling bullshit, excuse my language, BS, calling bullshit on everything these idiots are trying to feed them. Because, listen, pablum is for morons. Yeah, we're not talking about the old white ladies in Congress, because there aren't any yet. I think there was one. It was Clinton. She's not there anymore. So the thing about it is these kids. So here's a couple of things to keep in mind. One, what's important is these kids are getting ready to graduate high school. The only reason these old farts are giving them the time of day, right? Think about how many shootings we've had before now, right? Entirely too many. I mean, Jesus, we had an elementary school that got shot up, for God's sake. They literally couldn't give any of us the time of day. Oh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We're so sorry for your loss. In our thoughts and prayers. I don't want you in my thoughts and prayers. I want you in my legislature getting rid of weapons of war. Civilians don't need them, right? I know. But so here's the thing. All these shootings and all this time, it's all lip service over and over and over again, right? They literally couldn't bring themselves to get energetic enough to make a better show, of remorse or regret. They scare me. They really scare me. Hell has broken open and the demons have been let loose and they're all sitting in congressional seats. Anyway, but now suddenly they're paying attention. Now they're paying attention, right? And what is it? One of the teenagers said that the AR-15s should be renamed the Marco Rubio because they're just as easy to buy. I love these kids. So the thing about it is, because these kids are just getting ready to graduate high school, here's the thing. In the next election, guess who's voting? Right. These kids that are giving them all this pushback and calling bullshit on all the pablum, garbage, idiot nonsense they're trying to spin. These are the next set of voters, and these are the kids who are coming after them. And that's why now suddenly they're paying attention and, oh, I'm listening to everything you're saying. No, you're not. So there's that, right? Now, the other thing is, boom shakalaka. The other thing is that these kids all have Uranus in, hang on a second, I've got the chart here. Here's where it gets interesting. These kids all have Uranus and Aquarius. Now, there are people who be like, oh, Uranus and Aquarius, Uranus and rulership, like that's the big deal, right? But that's not the big deal. Your Generation Millennial has Uranus and Aquarius. Guess what? It opposes the Uranus and Leo of this generation that's in Congress right now. We have a Uranus opposition between these two generations, and we're seeing it play out. Because a thing to remember with Aquarius and Uranus energy, and Uranus in Aquarius, in its rulership, emphasizes all those Uranian Aquarian qualities. Well, you know what the big thing is? That is the most wonderful and the most hateful. Seriously, I swear. I'm going to do a whole video on this. This is great stuff. So the thing that makes it that about Aquarians that is so wonderful and so awful at the same time, their absolute commitment to the truth and honesty, right? If you've ever known anybody who's very Uranian, or very, Aquarius, but certainly people with strong Uranus in their charts, listen, you can get away with a whole lot of stuff, and they'll give you a pass because they're pretty, objective about stuff and detached, but lie to them, oh my God. Lie to a strong Uranian, lie to a strong Aquarian, and all hell will break loose. They won't have it. So here we have an entire generation of kids, the Uranus and Aquarius, literally with these old farts trying to not only lie to them, but spin it in such a way to convince them that this is reality, right? And they're like, no. We're not having it, Pops. No. This is your come to Jesus moment. Have a seat at the table. Oh my God, fantastic. And as if it couldn't get any better, here's the best part, right? So we're talking about an average age. So Uranus is going to move a few degrees back and forth, in both generations. But essentially what we're looking at is 14 and 15 degrees respectively. Yeah, he's a big truth fiend, so don't lie to him. Do not lie. That will literally send him into a classic Uranian thunderstorm, which, oh my God, I wouldn't wish on anybody. Aquarians and Uranians that lose their shit, that lose their crap, like it's scary. It's scary. Because they don't do it very often. And when they do, man, it's everything and the entire universe behind it is stuff that they have just not dealt with. Coming full force at you like a Mack truck. All right, so these degrees for Uranus in both of these generations, the congressional members and the Generation Millennial, is at 14, 15 degrees Leo. Well, guess what, children? Where did we have this eclipse? Dun, 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 12 Leo. We had this eclipse around those degrees. So the thing that's important, right? I know, it's amazing. I'm like, oh my God, I got to talk about this. So the thing that's important, and here's where the eclipses tie in. So with eclipses, typically we don't really feel it too much in our personal lives. Like it shakes things up. Like it really mobilizes stuff. Oh, well, he might be young, so it'll get easier as he get older. And he's more settled in his personality and identity. So eclipses will shake things up and mobilize things in our personal life, certainly. But the thing with eclipses that's important is that eclipses typically represent mass events, major things, large groups of people. It mobilizes large groups of people. Yeah. So, and here we have this eclipse that's taking place, that's activating this Uranus-Uranus opposition between these generations, and it is mobilizing these kids. What it does, the eclipse is doing is it's lending them a tremendous amount of force and energy with everything that they're speaking out about. And if you remember, when we did I think it was a Leo eclipse, it was Leo. I think it was a sign. It's Leo Aquarius eclipse. January 31st. We just did I have the video on this on my channel. You can go take a look at it. One of the things that we talked about. Yeah. One of the things that we talked about with that particular eclipse is it's not about us personally. It's about us as a group and as a whole, and people who are actively championing, the underdog and actively acting as an advocate for people who can't speak for themselves, are going to get a big green light and a lot of cosmic support in their efforts. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So this eclipse playing out has everything to do with mobilizing these kids. And they're doing exactly what the eclipse talks about, which is about charity and compassion and advocating and championing and speaking up for people who can't speak for themselves. Oh my God, this is so fantastic. So we got some stuff to watch. Now, with the Congress members, the old fogey club, right? The old dinosaur club. Pluto, because the baby boomer generation spans a big, wide, like it cuts a wide swath in the cloth. Well, Uranus, Aquarius, and social groups can get a little weird too, because sometimes there's a little bit of stormtrooper goose-stepping group think going on. Sometimes it's they want to be individuals, but they want to be part of the group, so we want to be a group of individuals. What was I saying? Right, so the Congress members. So a lot of them who are older will have Pluto and Leo, right? So they're the tail end of, right, the baby boomer generation is a large swath. So you've got a significant portion of the baby boomer generation that's well into their 60s right now and older that have Pluto and Leo, right? And the baby boomers have done amazing things every step of the way in terms of their identity, because Leo is very much about your identity. They have redefined Pluto, what it means to be that age or to be in your life at that point in your life. Like they've redefined everything up to and including being old. They've literally made an entirely new definition of what it means to be old. It's no longer about, climbing into your rocker and rocking away into retirement and waiting for grandbabies and death. Like that, no, they weren't having it. So gerontological studies, the study of aging, is literally a modern phenomenon that's only come into existence in the last 20 years or so, because all of these baby boomers, as they got older, are living longer and healthier. And also they're doing things that their parents didn't do, which is not getting into a rocker and rocking into retirement, waiting for grandbabies and death. So their physical issues were different. So literally there's an entire branch of medicine called gerontological studies, which is just the study of old people and aging. That's a modern phenomenon in the last 20 years. So thanks to the Pluto and Leo generation. And, there's even classifications as being young old or old, right? Totally amazing stuff. So, but the thing about it is, because the baby boomer generation, right, exactly. So the baby boomer generation, because it's such a wide swath that it's cutting, also includes the Pluto and Virgo generation. Now, the Pluto and Virgo generation is a little weird because I'm the generation with Uranus-Pluto stuff going on. So we're the post-Vietnam babies. But this particular, the cutoff for the baby boomers here is Pluto in early Virgo, right? So you've got the youngest members of the 50 plus baby boomer congressional members has Pluto in Virgo. And the Pluto in Virgo generation is also about, reform and fixing things, although they don't seem to be fixing a whole lot these days. Now, what's important about this, two things. One, with the Pluto and Virgo generation, with the youngest members of this age group in Congress, the Pluto in Generation Millenial, their Pluto is in Sag, and it is making wide, but it's still there. It's squaring the Pluto and Virgo members of Congress. Yeah, listen, I don't fault anybody in the Pluto and Virgo generation for not having done more. I mean, the fact of the matter is, kids who are born when Pluto was in Virgo, they came into this world, they were dealing with broken parents who were coming back from Vietnam and having difficulty assimilating. They were born into a society that's completely upside down because we were reorganizing ourselves in terms of what we were considering acceptable social norms and values, and redefining gender roles and social roles. Like everything was being blown open because we had been living such a robotic, artificial Stepford wife fantasy, which didn't allow for people to be human. So there was the Vietnam War, there was the Civil War, there was issues with education, there was issues with gender, and the Pluto and Virgo generation is the first generation of kids that came through mass divorces. Like prior to the 60s, you didn't get divorced. And if you did, so those of you who are really young, you're not going to understand this. So let me give you a little history lesson, right? Before the 1960s, when everybody, women's liberation and Vietnam and the Civil War and civil rights and all this important stuff happened so that we could grow and breathe and evolve. We need to evolve, right? Make progress. Before that, divorce rarely happened. And if a woman did get divorced, right, she was literally marked for life. She was considered a whore. She was assumed to be easy and would sleep with anybody. She was considered damaged goods. People wouldn't hire her for work. People wouldn't be friends with her because she couldn't be trusted around their kids because clearly her moral compass was broken. Men wouldn't want to date her, men wouldn't want to be with her except for this delusion that they had. Yeah, this delusion that they had that she was just some easy, wanton woman, and that's why she couldn't keep a man. So, her ability to get married again were very, very slim. And often, because at that time, the other thing that you guys don't seem to appreciate, and y'all can thank a feminist for all this stuff. You can just thank the feminist now. If you're able to use birth control and decide when you get pregnant and who you get pregnant with, if you have the ability to work a job and get paid fairly for it and decide what kind of work you're going to do, if you have the ability to decide when, how, who you're going to marry and start your family and live your life and under what conditions, you can thank a feminist. We don't expect everybody to go out and have a job or whatever, but the fact that you have a choice is because of the feminists. So the thing about it is, before feminism, if a woman got divorced, so you had all this stuff going on, and the other thing is that you couldn't get a job. And if you could get a job, because of the inequality in pay, you literally weren't making enough to support yourself, much less, God forbid, you got divorced with kids, you and your kids. So you literally, in order to survive, you had to get married, because you literally could not get a job making any kind of money. Nobody would pay you. And back then, you literally were only allowed to, you ready? You were only allowed to have one of three jobs. You were allowed to be a teacher, you were allowed to be a nurse, or you were allowed to be a secretary. That's it. Those were your job options. You weren't, literally, nobody would hire you for anything else, because you weren't supposed to do that. Your whole thing before the 60s was you worked long enough to find a husband, get married, have children, and stop working. It's about choice, and it's about men being able to be men without adopting this toxic masculinity that's like this caricature of manhood. And it's about women being able to make decisions about their bodies and their lives so that they can come to the table as a strong equal, because only weak men want weak women. You know, a strong man wants a strong woman that can hold him up. God forbid something happens, because he wants a life partner. He doesn't want a babysitter, like somebody has a babysit, right? So pre-1960s, divorces didn't happen because the social ramifications of getting divorced were so huge, so huge. Literally, marrying the first drunk that came along that was willing to take on you and your kids was still more practical than trying to survive on women's wages in whatever jobs you could get, you know, as this marked woman, because you were clearly so defective you couldn't keep a man. Honest to God, that's the way the world used to be. So, the 60s came along, women's lib, all this sort of stuff. Big deal, very big deal. You know, and I can imagine the grief she had to deal with when she was there. Oh my God. So when women's lib came along in the 60s, and, you know, people were saying, you know what, we don't have to live like this. I can't stand you. I want to smother you in your sleep with a pillow. We need to get divorced. They finally said, like, we're going to do this. But the problem is, because this is the first generation of people getting divorced, like en masse, nobody really knew how to do it correctly. So you have a lot of people in the Pluto Virgo generation that have a lot of scars, you know, in their early childhood, because we have broken parents coming back from Vietnam that are having difficulty assimilating. And now we've got broken homes with people who don't know how to divorce properly, you know, so everything was just difficult, you know. And what's interesting is, if you look at the next generation, would have been the little brothers and sisters of that generation. They would be the Pluto and Libra generation. So about that time, all of these parents that were divorcing would have figured out that fighting with each other and literally attacking each other in front of the kids was not good. And then they would have resorted now to more manipulative games. And we see this a lot now, but like back then, there was no other understanding of what was happening. So it was more toxic, right? So by the time we got down to our little brothers and sisters, now you're looking at people manipulating the kids, you know, by giving them stuff and you know, taking them play, trying to be the good parent, right? Trying to be the fun parent sort of thing, as you work through custody and child support and all that sort of stuff. So, oh, right, that was the other thing. Here's the other thing. Here's a very important history lesson, boys and girls. Before the 1970s, I think even the 80s, right? Before the 1970s, if you got divorced and you had children, or if he left you, which was the same thing as far as society was concerned, if you were a woman who could not be in a marriage because you divorced him or he abandoned you, and you had children, guess what? You didn't get child support. You got nothing. That man could walk out and leave you with nothing. And you would have to figure out how you were going to support yourself and those kids on women's wages, right? Because remember, you were only allowed to be a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary, and you got paid pennies on the dollar because women weren't supposed to work. Right, exactly. It literally wasn't until, I think it was the 70s when they first started even discussing the requirement of paying child support, and it wasn't until the 80s that it actually started to be enforced. And I think it may have even been, because I'm thinking it was when Reagan was in office, the whole Reaganomics thing. Because it was a big welfare thing, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was. There was the big pushback against welfare It was the 90s. It was literally like it took until we started getting divorced in the 60s, and it was 30 years it took to finally get child support straightened out. So in like the late 80s, 90s, that's when they finally started pushing like legal and like federal involvement, government involvement to force fathers to pay their child support. Because prior to that, like they would have court orders for child support or whatever, but then the father would just be like, yeah, whatever, I'm not gonna pay it, and just wouldn't. So, but it was literally because of all of the women with children that were ending up on welfare, because what else are you gonna do? You have to feed your kids, right? That they stepped in and said, you know what? One of the things that we're gonna do to try and relieve the burden on society because of the welfare demands, because of these women with children who have fathers somewhere, somebody help make these babies, that are not helping to raise these kids and pay for things. We're going to start making it mandatory that they pay these child support dues to their children, and we're even going to intervene, and we will start attaching their wages if they don't do it voluntarily. That took 30 years to get there. So prior to that, if you God forbid, you ended up in a broken home, like you may as well have been homeless. So, and that's why literally marrying the first drunk that came along that was willing to put up with your mother and your brothers and sisters was still a more practical decision than your mother trying to figure out how to do it on her own. Pretty interesting stuff. And feminism says you're welcome. So back to the charts. See, this is why I can't put this stuff on a lot of charts. People hear the word feminism and they're like, oh my God, whatever. You're getting upset about stuff you don't even understand what you're talking about. I know, but you know what? Progress is messy. Progress is messy. It always has been. It is messy. Sometimes it's chaotic. A lot of times it's extremely inconvenient. And sometimes it's just downright painful and challenging, but it has to happen. And what always happens is there are the people in the in-group, the people who are determined to maintain the status quo. They don't want anything to change, and they don't want things to change because they benefit from the way things are. Like, why would you want that to change? And then there's everybody else who's like, no, we can't keep doing this. This isn't working for everybody else. So, given a choice between staying with what we know that works for us or allowing progress and change that could end up putting us at a disadvantage, there's no one in their right mind that's going to say, oh, yes, you're absolutely right. We should just, let things change, and I'll take that hit. Maybe I will end up in a worse position. Nobody says volunteers for a worse position. So that's typically what happens, and that's where we have so much resistance to change and progress. Let's see. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, some things you don't want to be right about. So we are in the process of great change. So the thing about it is, with this generation, they're pretty, each generation is exceptional in its contribution. No, it's not over yet. Hang in there, Nicole. It's not over yet. Each generation is exceptional in its contribution to evolution and progress. Everybody has a specific job to do and specific contributions to make. What makes this particularly interesting is these eclipses are hitting Uranus, and Uranus is very much about disrupting the social order and progress and evolution and pushing us forward. So it is mobilizing, giving a tremendous amount of force and forcing things to come to critical mass right now as we speak. So history, as it's being made, we are part of it as we are watching it. So this is some fascinating stuff. The other thing between these two generations is they have a Neptune square. So the congressional members, average baby boomers, have their Neptune in Scorpio, and Generation Millenial has their Neptune in Aquarius. So they have almost a nearly exact Neptune square. So there's a real conflict here in terms of what's considered high-minded Neptunian principles. So this is fascinating to watch. This is fascinating. Well, we're not there yet. So I know there's it's interesting you mentioned that because I was looking at that. So, you know, of course, the big thing everybody immediately goes to is like, oh my God, it's going to change the money system and Bitcoin and, you know, plastic chips in your head. And all those things are valid and probably very true. But I have to look at the transits for it. I know. Um, I have to look at the transits for it because I've got, you know, I live a life that's not going as smoothly as some people's. So I don't have a lot of time to dilly dally with charts as much as I'd like to. So I had to look at the aspects to see what else is going on and get a better sense of the picture ahead. But, you know, the thing that I'm not hearing a lot about that I think is extremely important, the video will be here. Bye. Who's Saturn return? Missy Christie is asking, you have your Saturn return, right? Anyway, so Taurus doesn't just rule money. Taurus rules resources. Remember that word, resources. And it also has everything to do... Oh, mine? Oh, I've had a couple Saturn returns. Well, one, at least. Saturn just feels like Saturn no matter what it's doing. So Taurus rules resources, and it also rules food. Food, okay? One of the big conversations, and the reason GMO, like genetically modified food, and Monsanto and all this sort of stuff, has been an ongoing discussion with a lot of the activists, you know, a lot of the green people. Oh, God, no. I had a really tough Saturn aspect. I've been through my Saturn return was easy compared to a Saturn square. I had Saturn squaring a bunch of planets in my chart. And honestly, it was like having an enema with Brillo pads. It was horrible. Ugh. But we're here now. Yeah, I do Saturn. So, for people who are very green and organic sort of stuff, like they get it. Like this has been an ongoing conversation for quite a while. It's just not a trending conversation, so a lot of people still don't know what's going on. But so there are issues with Monsanto. I'll tell you in a second. What is a Saturn return exactly? Give me 1 second. Let me finish this thought. So Monsanto has been poisoning the crops and basically sterilizing crops because of the things. And what they're trying to do is they trademarked. Oh my God, they've literally patented seeds. Like, so if you had a crop, if you were a farmer and you had a crop and Monsanto had a crop growing nearby and some of their seeds blew into your farm and cross-fertilized with your plants or your crop, Monsanto would lay claim to, and has done this, they have actually taken people to court for this, will lay claim to your crop and say that you've stolen from them. Like, because yeah, you went over and had the bees cross-pollinate their stuff with yours. And literally have you destroy your crops, you know, or sue you for everything you're worth and take over your farm. Monsanto is literally evil empire. So there's that. And also what scientists know is that we are heading into a food shortage. People are living longer. There's way too many of us, and we have less and less land mass to farm with. And we have polluted oceans. So we are literally running out of resources to feed people. So the whole Soylent Green thing could be a possibility in the future. So when I look at the Uranus and Taurus, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at our actual organic resources, food, water, clean air, soil erosion, you know, the ability to keep people fed. So money is nothing compared to that because you can't eat money. So that's something to pay attention to. Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be a game changer. Definitely going to be a game changer. So I would look, when I think about Uranus and Taurus, I think about food and I think about soil and farming, you know, and water and all the basic necessities, the resources we need to live, which is not money. Money buys things, and money buys the things that we need to live, which are food, you know, food and supplies. And just very quickly, so a Saturn return in your natal chart, your Saturn, wherever your Saturn is on the day, time, and minute you were born, Saturn's at a specific position. And approximately 27 to 29 years later, Saturn will have moved around the circle and through all the signs, and at that point come back to exactly that position. And usually it happens about like about the time you're 27, 28 years old. By the time you're 29, 30, like you're finishing your Saturn return, you're through the worst of it. And a Saturn return is a period of self-actualization. So one of two things will happen under Saturn return. Either your Saturn return will go by very quietly and nothing spectacular happens, or you'll get some type of reward or recognition for efforts that you've been putting in, because it's a culmination, a closing of a life chapter and moving forward. Because you're self-actualizing, you're coming to terms with who you are going to be and who you're definitely not going to be. So at 27 to 29, you come to the realization that, well, okay, I'm probably not going to be an astronaut. I'm probably not going to be a rock star. Perhaps my dreams of being an Olympic snowboarder are not realistic, and I'm probably going to be an insurance actuary instead. So this is self-actualization. So we kind of come to a place where we crystallize into an identity. Now, the other thing that can happen under a Saturn return is the further from who you are, the further your life is from who what your essence represents, the more difficult and traumatic a Saturn return will be, because it will often feel like literally the rug is being pulled out from underneath you. So you'll find that a whole lot of stuff just kind of falls apart and falls to the wayside under a Saturn return and gets taken away from you, as it were, metaphorically speaking, because these things are not contributing to your process and are not in keeping with who you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to grow into. So for some people, the Saturn returns are extremely difficult because it's a point of self-actualization, and the further away from you are from your genuine self, the more difficult that Saturn return is going to be. Here we go, the itching again. But for people who are people who are in congruence, in two words, in congruence with their essential self, Saturn returns are relatively painless. I'll tell the other Saturn transits they're a pain in the neck. I know, every time. Sorry. So, yeah, the eggs. I don't know, that's pretty interesting. I don't know what that's about. I think I would cry if I had to give up eggs. I love eggs. That's why I can't imagine being a vegan, because eggs and dairy are like my two favorite things in life. You're welcome, Nicole. So if you're over the age of 28, chances are you have been through your Saturn return. Because like I said, Saturn returns occur between 27 and 29, and usually over by 29, 30. So they're not horrible. I mean, people are, whatever. Like some people are like, oh my God, Saturn, because Saturn's not exactly, well, it's actually, eggs are very good for you from what I understand. They're almost the perfect food. And boys, young growing boys, need a lot of protein and a lot of essential fatty acids. So I don't see anything wrong with it, unless there's something weird about the eggs. That's a whole other thing. And the other thing is maybe they're telling you to avoid flu shots, because I think flu shots are done with eggs or cultivated on eggs. Yeah. 2 dozen eggs a week. That's a lot of eggs, though. So I used to date a guy who went to medical school. He's a physician, and we were talking about eggs. So there's a thing called cholesteremia, which is high cholesterol. Yeah, understood. But he said you literally have to eat like a ton of eggs to actually end up like that. So, and cholesterol is best managed with lots of fiber. So if your boys are going through about 2 dozen eggs a week, I would absolutely make sure they're getting plenty of fiber. Plenty. It's possible. It's possible. I can't imagine how amazing it must be to be so good at something that the Olympics were even an option. Like, I see myself, if there were like a narcolepsy convention, where sleeping were an Olympic event, I could be a contender. I could so be a contender. I could be the Olympic gold medalist for sleeping. Unfortunately, I petition them all the time. The U.S. Olympic Committee just will not, they will not see my way on this. But I'm pretty persuasive. I'm going to stay on it. Whew. So, thank you guys for giving me company, help me sort this stuff out with this chart. This is going to be an interesting chart. So I need to put graphics and stuff in here so it makes sense. So the other thing, in case you guys haven't noticed, so for those of you who are carrying planets near, where's Mars right now? Like 15 Sag? Like between 12 and 15 of the mutables, you know, Sag, Gemini, Virgo, Pisces. This T-square, the moon in Gemini is setting up a T-square because it's opposing Mars and squaring all these Pisces planets. Oh my God, what a... It's not been fun. It's not been fun. So I knew that there was going to be a bit of a kerfluffle or a crap storm that was coming because of this T-square, because it always does when there are mutable signs involved. But I had expected it to be from work because there's some stuff going on at work, which it is still a possibility. That is still a yes. It is still a possibility. So if you, in the last 24 hours, have been having difficulty sleeping or staying asleep and just feeling very restless, this is what it is. It's this T-square and mutable signs. So, I mean, the thing about it is with the kids and this shooting and stuff, like we had these before, and, you know, some grieving and stuff like is normal, you know, and there's definitely change in the air, but this T-square really doing us all in. And today it's really coming down like Thor's hammer. So, you know, count to 10, breathe hard, understand that, you know, the crap show is going to be coming from some direction. Exactly. We know the crap storm is coming from one direction or another. So you just got to know it's going to happen. You just got to get through it and, you know, duck when necessary, right? And try not to do anything that's going to get you arrested. For the love of God, please try not to do anything that's going to get you arrested. So if you really feel like your Irish is getting up, walk away. It's literally the T-square. So now here's what's important about this. As we head into this full moon in Virgo, coming up March 1st, right? Which is only a couple weeks away. So we're not out of it yet. So what we're getting now is a preview of the kind of insanity we can expect to be dealing with when we get to that full moon. So it's really pushing some buttons, because what will happen is the moon, instead of opposing, when we have that full moon, instead of opposing Mars and squaring those Pisces planets, it will be opposing those Pisces planets and squaring Mars. Then you know. So people will be much more sensitive and irrational and easy to provoke. People will be much easier to provoke under that full moon. Yeah, well, wait until we get to the full moon in Virgo on March 1st, and you'll feel it a couple days before then. People will be very, very easy to provoke, so don't provoke them as best you can. And don't allow yourself to be provoked. Yeah, well, you know, forewarned is forearmed, right? As a matter of fact, while we're talking, let me pull up the transits for March 1st. Let's see what this actually looks like. Well, yeah, it is. But sometimes if you can just catch yourself, you can keep it from getting worse. You know what I mean? And ultimately, a lot of times, most of adulthood feels like we're just doing crisis management. We're kind of firefighting as we go along. Okay, so this is going to be in the late degrees. Let's see what we got here. Well, Missy, I would suggest you practice some anger management there. All right, so this looks like it's, at least here in the US, on the East Coast, it will be exact. No, wait. There it is. Yeah, it is March 1st. All right, so it will be, oh, this won't be too bad. It's still going to be a full moon. Right, exactly. It's still going to be a full moon, but it will, thank God, it will not pull in that Mars, that Sag Pisces square so tightly. Mm-hmm. So, all right, so what we're going to have is a full moon in Virgo at about 10, 11, Pisces, Virgo, 11 of the mutables, which is where we're feeling it today, because Gemini is around those degrees. So that's going to make people very easy to provoke and super, super sensitive. And moon in Virgo is always very persnickety, like, yikes. Pick. Moon in Virgo, right? And it will be opposing Neptune. So here's some things for you guys. Yeah, well, so here's some things. This is like all, like tipster stuff, right? So for those of you who are dealing with difficult people or situations and you need to do some strategic planning, if you're all about the chess game right now, which some of us are, and we had this conversation in the last live stream, right? Or a couple live streams ago. Anyway, so here's the thing with this full moon, and it's going to oppose Neptune. So Neptune and the sun are going to be together. The moon is going to be opposing that. So here's some things that I would be on the lookout for. With a sun-Neptune conjunction like this and that full moon, with a sun-Neptune conjunction, you can expect people, especially people in positions of authority or leadership, to not necessarily be on the up and up. So, or to be so transparent about what's really going on. Now, the moon, as it moves into this opposition, should open this up, right? And should make it much easier to see where people are not being completely forthcoming about things. So that's where a lot of this, the lies being revealed sort of stuff is coming up. However, well, yeah. However, with this particular full moon, right, we've got Mercury and Venus together, trining Jupiter in Scorpio. And we've got Mars squaring that. So the biggest thing that I would look for is a lot of confusion and a lot of misguided, attempts to get stuff done. So people will be intending to do the right things, but they may not necessarily have all the information, or they may not be getting all the correct information. So the intentions are good. The application is not necessarily as clean as the theory. So with this, I would be very... With this particular full moon, one of the ways to survive this full moon and get through it relatively unscathed, is to take the high road. So for those of you who are doing Othello type Shakespearean plots, to take over the enemy and conquer, this would be a time to kind of pull back a little, pull the armies back, pull the Trojan horse back, and just kind of, take the high road, take, the heart-centered road. This is not a time to aggressively pursue things, because from all fronts, all right, there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of miscommunication, and there may also be delays in information getting to you. So it's kind of like, if you could imagine that the president gets news that we're under attack, so he goes to press the red button, and then like 2 minutes too late gets the information that, oh, it was a mistake, like that thing in Hawaii where the person accidentally sat on the button that said they were under nuclear attack. But he gets the information like 2 minutes too late. Oh, that was a false alarm. Well, not helping me now. So taking the high road will keep you from making actions that will have worse ramifications later because of misunderstandings. Well, if you guys are taking all these eclipses together as a family, the good news is at least you're going through it together. And all at one time. Now, with this full moon also, this Mars, this rabble-rousing, troublemaking Mars, Not only will it be squaring Mercury and Venus, which is going, and with that moon in Virgo, it's just going to make for sharp, sharp words. Oh my God, be aware that there's going to be a lot of pointy words under this full moon. But because Venus and Mars are also in square, it also makes for some very sexy vibes. So for those of you who are intimately active, this is a great time to go blow off some steam with someone very attractive, because that will definitely set the world right. We approve this message. The other thing is that Mars will be making a trine to Uranus. Remember, Uranus is all about honesty and truth. So there may be more than a few things that kind of like, jump into existence and awareness. Yeah. That may surprise folks, but it's a part of clearing the air. But again, it takes a little longer for Mars to reach that Uranus than it does that Mercury and Venus. So Mars will square Mercury and Venus, and then it will hit Uranus, which is why I'm saying, like, hit the delay button before you do anything. Because there's stuff that you're going to need to hear or see before you take an action that may be delayed getting to you. And you don't want to take aggressive action that could cost you later if you had just known to wait a second, because it's not what it looked like, sort of thing. Now, in that same vein, right, for those of you who are of the intimately active variety, the nice part is that Mars-Uranus trine like that, as it's squaring Venus, it will make for some really hot, spontaneous, like, woohoo! So definitely go with that. Go with that. Go forth and multiply, young man. Okay, hold that thought. So for those of you who have been hitting kind of like a stale point in your relationships, this is definitely time to be spontaneous and let things spice things up. And dirty talking, playing with dirty talking, or like dirty phone calls, like little teenage kind of stuff, will have very therapeutic effects. So that is something to consider to try and blow off some of this energy with this full moon. So if I communicate with a skilled lawyer regarding a possible emotional distress case, I should stay calm and focused on the injury aspect. Well, I mean, that's just, listen, I'm going to tell you, that's just good advice in general when dealing with lawyers. But under this particular full moon, abso-freaking-lutely, like, you need to be even more calm. Let other people play the wackadoodle card. You keep yourself together. Girl, you better soundproof the house. Natal Venus 11 degrees. Oh, well, Nicole, you're just gonna, I'm just gonna send you I'm jealous cards for a month after this. Good Lord. So everyone watching this video, I want you to know that there's someone who is going to be getting all the love for all of us all at one time. So be jealous. Be very, very jealous. Oh my God. Girl, please. Oh, well, it's okay, because as much as you love me, he's going to be loving you more, and I'm going to be so jealous of both of you. Good grief. Clearly, you will not be going to bed with a congressional member. Because yours still has some life left in him. Oh, I feel so much better. Thank you guys for keeping me company and talking to me. I needed this. I was really having a bad morning. Moon and Gemini making that T-square. Nice. Nice. See, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, say what you will, but, adult intimacy between consenting adults, as one of the few things that we get, that's a reward for being an adult. Listen, this adulting business is hard work, and it's thankless. Nobody ever says thank you for being an adult. So, it's just a thankless job. So being able to relax and let your hair down, enjoy yourself, and have adult play with another adult like is extremely therapeutic and very, very good for the heart, the mind, and the soul, especially when it's done in the right spirit. You know, so when we can put our baggage down, we can really come from a genuine place with another person who wants to bring us joy, not sorry, who wants to bring us joy and share something with us. That's a tremendously healing thing. So I don't understand why some of these so-called religious people are so, hey, self-sufficient people are the best people to have around. I don't understand why these so-called religious people are so constantly fixated on what other people do in the privacy of their bedrooms. Oh my God. And did you guys see, and this takes us back, this is what happens when you live too long, right? This takes us back to the moral majority. And I've been saying this over and over and over again, that our current Congress has been, the Republican Party has been hijacked by the moral majority. So literally, a lot of the money that has been at play, that has funded the people that have gotten elected, is coming out of these like extreme evangelists. So, and this is all from the moral majority back in the 80s, because for those of you who live in the United States and you're old enough, you would remember Jerry Falwell and the moral majority and the war on pornography. They tied up so many years and so much federal money fighting pornography, because who on earth cares what people watch in the privacy of their bedroom to entertain themselves, as long as there's adults in it? Like this is a thing. So they lost that war. It was horrible and funny to live through all at the same time. Oh, I love Rachel Maddow. Love Rachel Maddow. So they lost that war, and I'm completely convinced that they had just regrouped and made a better strategy, because they're not stupid people. And they pretty much hijacked the Republican Party by placing key people in thing. And if you look at every key member in Congress around the presidency, they're all directly linked to evangelist or evangelical fundamentalist kind of religious things. And now here we go. What are they doing? They're like, I think Florida's banning pornography because it's a health issue. Right. So we can't get rid of guns. It's okay for people to kill themselves, but it's not okay to watch pornography in privacy, I swear to God, if you go on the internet and search it, it just came out this week. So it's the moral majority. The moral majority has taken over Congress. And this is not good. This is not good. Because, as we said back in the 80s, I think it was the 80s, or maybe it's the early 90s, the moral majority is neither. And anybody who spends that much time obsessing about somebody else's sex life really needs some love at home. I'm just saying. Exactly, dude. When my sex life becomes more interesting than yours, that's the real problem. Yes, I know. God bless them. I love those kids. It's an interesting thing. So there's a whole cadre of people that insist that because Sanders was running, that he disrupted the election and made it impossible for Clinton to win, and ergo made it possible for Trump to win. Now, we all know, because of the weird way the voting system is set up down here, that Trump won because of the Electoral College, which is not the popular vote. So it's not that Trump had popular support. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad I'm making somebody happy. So the thing about it is, Trump doesn't actually have popular support. Trump has a minority support that's very, very vocal. But because of the way the Electoral College is set up, where some areas have more votes, in spite of the fact that they have smaller populations than other places, if you win key electoral districts, it's like getting a 2-for-1 sale. Same price, twice as many, right? And that's how he got in. So, here we go with itching. I really wish Spirit would give me a different way to get messages that they're trying to talk to me. So that leaves us, there's that, but then there's that leaves us with Sanders and Clinton. And the thing that I'm hearing is that because Sanders was running, the remaining electoral colleges that could have gone to Clinton and made this swing in her favor was not possible because Sanders was taking up the other section. And then, of course, you have people who are like, oh, but he's so old, I mean, he would die in office. And it's like, hi, have you seen the rest of Congress? They're not exactly spring chickens. And furthermore, have you seen the relative ages of the people in the Supreme Court who will never leave until they die? I'm just saying. And they're all still kicking. So I'm sad that Sanders didn't win either, because he cares about the kids, and he wants to do it right. And he's not owned by corporations or anything like that, at least not that we can see, not based on the changes he was trying to make. But you know what? It is what it is. We are dealing with a situation because we apparently need to go through this process. And it's been difficult, but it's been very important and very therapeutic. And there's a whole lot of people having a come to Jesus moment about what their real values are and, what drove them to make the decisions they've made, and seeing the error of their ways, because now they're seeing someone else play out the things that they weren't paying attention to. So it's difficult. And, the thing about it is, if the moral majority, as I believe they have hijacked the Republican Party, the problem is they've taken the word conservative, and traditional and family values, and they've corrupted it. Because you can be a conservative, you can have family values, you can be, traditional without being an ass, a selfish, mean-spirited, stingy ass. Right. Because they like to call themselves, the Christian population. And listen, dude, I'm not a Christian. I'm a Buddhist, but I grew up around Christians. I've got family who are born again, or were for a while anyway, very fire and brimstone Christians. And I'm telling you, this isn't what you guys are doing. Not you guys, but these liars in Congress, like what you're doing, this is not Christianity. There's nothing Christian about the way you think or the way you're doing things. What you're doing is this evangelical, narrow-minded fantasy about the 144,000 that are getting on the bus and leaving the rest of us to burn in hell, because you've convinced yourself that you are part of the 144,000 that will go to heaven, or to another planet if you're Mormon. So but we had to have this process so that people, oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is going to be an interesting, he's making history, but not in the ways he expected to. So this has been a necessary process for us all to really start paying attention to propaganda and what we're fed and how we're so easily manipulated by our fears and our feelings, So, but it's okay, because the Generation Millenial are kicking ass, taking names, and taking no prisoners. I love those kids. I feel like I feel like a proud grandparent. You go, kids, you go. Okay. I feel a lot better. It's time. And the thing to always remember is that nothing happens in a vacuum. These kids didn't come up into existence out of a bubble, right? These kids came into existence because of the excellent parenting, and the excellent moral teaching and the excellent social responsibility that their parents and their grandparents instilled in them. These kids didn't happen by accident. They're not some weird anomaly, because their parents were impregnated by aliens. They're this weird thing that didn't exist. Their presence and their commitment and their integrity and their passion about the things that matter this moment was brought to you by good parenting and adults who kept the torch lit and taught them from very young, moving forward, and support them now, about the important things like social responsibility and being honest, and having a moral compass that's not about what works for me right now, but having a real moral compass that is about what is in the best interest of everybody. So I think that all of the adults around this generation that have participated and contributed to this process and made these kids who they are, and made them strong and confident enough to be who they are right now. I think they should all, get a little nod too, because, nothing we don't accomplish anything alone. Nothing happens alone. Pluto and Scorpio. I'm trying to remember what generation that is. I'm trying to think. I'm so sorry. So thinking Pluto and Scorpio was the Reaganomics era. So that was I'm pretty sure it was the 80s, right? There are some excellent mundane astrologers. And for those of you who don't know what that means, a mundane astrologer is an astrologer who studies world events and issues of the mundane variety, meaning of the world. And there are some excellent mundane astrologers who've talked a lot about things as they're changing. Yeah, let me take a look at this now. So and they're much better at these conversations than I am, because they really do keep on top of current events and historical events. These are all your political junkies and your history junkies, and these are the ones that all pull up this stuff. There it is, Pluto and Scorpio. That can pull stuff out of history and talk about this stuff in detail. I have only very loose references for it, so I'm always at a disadvantage because I can't pull stuff out of my hat. It was the 80s. So in 1984, Orwell, 1984, Pluto went into Scorpio. So these were the kids born in the 80s. Yeah. So the Pluto and Scorpio generation. See, these are the militants we're dealing with right now. So kids who are born in 1984, how old did they make them right now? I was wondering about them too, because they've got Uranus and Neptune in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius and Scorpio together makes for some very militant thinking, very goose step Nazi stormtrooper kind of stuff. 34. Okay. Right. So 34 would be the oldest for the Pluto and Scorpio generation. And then, of course, it would go downwards. So it would probably look like late 20s. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not completely sure what to think about them. And I wasn't sure what to think about them either. So, the thing about it is Pluto has such a reputation, and well, Scorpio has such a reputation. So of course, Pluto going into its own sign in Scorpio, it's, everybody's like, oh my God, kind of thing. Like you'd think Frankenstein was coming home. Or, like Dracula was moving in next door. Well, the interesting thing about a moral compass is that the moral compass is you can't see that in an astrology chart. And this is the thing that I struggle with a lot of astrology conversations, especially by people who purport to be professional astrologers. Because professional astrologers, just like physicians and other professionals, you can be very, very good at what you do and still be a lousy human being, or an irresponsible one, which is usually, the thing that drives me the craziest. So in a moral compass, like a few other things, you're just not going to see in a chart. So I struggle with listening to people, not you guys, but, astrologers in general, talk about this stuff as if there was some thing that they could point to that absolutely gave an absolute vindication of somebody about their behavior or potential behavior because of their, morals or lack of morals, depending on planetary positions. So, with Pluto and Scorpio, some of the things that I would probably assume about people born in this generation. So the first things that I would look at is anything that aspects or interacts with that Pluto, because Pluto in its own, any planet in its own sign is much more intense and much stronger. So how it interacts with something else is going to be significant. So, and remember in astrology, when we look at these planets and signs and houses, it's just like chemistry. You can have two completely different molecules and put them together and come up with a third thing that's completely different, right? So hydrogen and oxygen, depending on how many hydrogen and how many oxygen molecules you have, you can end up with, excuse me, oh my gosh, you can end up with water, or you can end up with oxygen, I think. No, something. It's oxygen or something else. I'm obviously not a chemist. No, it's give you the truth no matter what. My Jupiter, Neptune are in Sagittarius, as long as the truth isn't too painful. Neptune. So with Pluto and Scorpio, one of the things that I would look for definitely, because they also have Neptune, again, they have Uranus and Neptune in Sag. So these kids, there's a tendency in this particular grouping of planets, Uranus and Neptune and Sag, which also then, depending on if they're younger, would be Neptune and Capricorn. And Pluto and Scorpio will make them very rigid, tunnel vision. They get like tunnel vision in their thinking. So it's not that they see things in terms of black and white. It's that they see things in very narrow terms. So they like to focus the lens down to its smallest aperture, like a microscope. And that's literally what they will focus on. And that's all they will allow themselves to see, because that is their preference. So they're always looking for the real truth behind something. So these are the ones that are the most likely to get involved and to buy into this stupid conspiracy stuff. Listen, by the way, if you're a big fan of conspiracy theories, please don't take offense or take offense. I'm not a fan, because my feeling is that if you have enough time to mess around with conspiracy theories and, you know, hold that sort of stuff together, like, you know, that kind of research to put all these random things together to make a conspiracy, you have enough time to go do some volunteer work and actually make something happen that's good for people. I have a real struggle with people that have too much time in their hands and spend a lot of time doing nothing but making people more paranoid. Because honestly, like, if the world's that bad and you're that knowledgeable about what's really going on behind the scenes, you also clearly have enough time and energy to go fix something for someone. So, but that's me. That's me. All right, let's see. Trump will not see his term. He would quit, abdicate. No, that big egomaniac would never abdicate. Yeah, well, you know, the thing with conspiracy theorists is, I don't know, I'm not even going to go there, because I literally don't understand them, except that they have too much free time on their hands and way too much energy, you know, and are looking for excitement when there isn't any, and certainly putting a lot of time and energy into stuff when they could be doing something practical and helpful to people other than their personal entertainment and making other people paranoid. Like we need more paranoia in the world. Like, I need you to make me more paranoid. Like, I'm not half crazy enough just watching the news. And as far as Trump, I don't know. So I'm surprised he got in the office at all. But I have a very strong bias against this man. I've seen his chart. I've got it up on Facebook in a Facebook group. I did his chart analysis immediately after he was elected. He's not a nice person. See, and you know, the thing about it is you can't make character assessments based on a chart, but you can make some very good predictions about what kind of person you're dealing with, and every negative quality that potentially could exist in this person, he has displayed, you know. And the fact of the matter is, the whole reason he's not pushing for more gun control, that people keep forgetting, is that we don't live in his neighborhoods. His children will never go to school with our children. His children will never be in environments where they have to worry about a mass shooter. Okay? So when he doesn't push gun control and says, yeah, arm the teachers, arm the students, hell, just give everybody guns, right? It's because anybody who I am a gun owner, and I'm a former NRA member, and I am a Second Amendment supporter. And if you have been around firearms and you have firearm training, one of the things that you know is that there's no good end, you know, when it comes to the end of a gun, right? Especially in untrained individuals and especially in moments of panic. That's why police officers have special training and even they have difficulty dealing with this stuff. I would never put people in a position to force them to have murder on their hands. I wouldn't force somebody to have that kind of blood on their hands, which is what's going to happen if somebody has to shoot someone, you know? So, and now he's saying that you can either have a gun and shoot people, or you can not have a gun and be blamed for not shooting people. Like, why would you put that kind of blood on the hands of teachers? You know? Oh my God. But see, the thing about it is, remember, his children and his grandchildren will never be in the environments that our children are, where they're looking at this. So what does he care if we all shoot each other? You know, they are trying to thin the herd now with, Medicaid and reducing what's available to our elders. They don't care. Literally, it's the 144,000 getting on the bus, and they think that they're the 144,000 and the rest of us just need to go away. But ultimately, it's not okay to force someone else to take blood on their hands for murder, either passively or actively, especially in situations where there was an option and something else could have been done. Exactly. But if you think about it, if you were in a position where you would never have to deal with this and your children would never be in an environment that this would be an issue for them, like how much easier is it to just distance yourself from any concern, or even consideration about the impacts and ramifications of this? Doesn't bother me. I'll never feel a thing, He's an elitist. He is an elitist. He has always been an elitist. And there's so much not okay with that man's chart. But as far as him not finishing out his term, I mean, clearly he's been in office way too long. It's just every time we think there's nowhere further down to go, him and the entire insane clown car posse tour de force around him find a new level of low. Like you think they've hit bottom, and nope, they can go even further down. No, he's not super Urani. He's super Gemini. That's all that double talk, dancing on your feet, talking out both sides of your mouth. Gemini. That man. Anyway. Well, the fact that he was born on an eclipse is interesting. I heard an astrologer a long time ago. I don't know how true this is, but an astrologer mentioned once, we were having coffee, we were all talking, and she was saying about people who are born under eclipses. I don't remember which one. I think it was the lunar eclipse. One of the eclipses. People born on a particular eclipse, solar or lunar, don't have souls. They're coming into this lifetime without a soul because that light is blocked. So there's no light in them. Light being spiritual light. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know how true that is because I don't know that many people born under eclipses, but maybe it's true. Maybe we do. Yeah, right. Maybe we do have Damien in office. All right. Well, see, this is the thing. I don't know that anybody really understands the power of guns until they've had to use it. It's like killing something. Like, you don't understand how heavy that will weigh on your conscience until you have to do it. Like, I had to put a dog down. Like, it was literally the most painful thing I've ever had to do. And I still carry that around on my conscience, because Jesus. So, and that was an animal that needed to be put down because he was dangerous to people, So that's not the same thing as killing somebody and having the moral ambiguity about, was this really a necessary killing? Is there something else I could have done to avoid this? That kind of blood on the hands, I wouldn't wish on anybody, just wow. Okay. Oh my God. Do you guys realize that I've been on here for over an hour? Oh my God. I didn't really talk so much. So, yeah. Right. Well, that's the thing. People who grew up with guns and around guns, like, they understand, like, that this is a very big deal. People who have been in the military and in war that have, had to watch people die understand better than any of us, how heavy, a death weighs on your conscience, I mean, you literally have to find a way to rationalize this to make this okay. You have to build up such a hatred in your heart and such a deep personalization of the other person to make that death to make that blood on your hands more palatable. There's just no way you can't look at somebody and see them as a human being that's worth anything and be okay with their death, especially if you're participating in that. Isn't Trump's rising conjunct Regulus? Yes, it is. And isn't the ruler Regulus about not following... Isn't the rule of Regulus about not following honor, that removal of wealth or violent death? So Regulus is an interesting fixed star. He does, in fact, have Regulus rising. And Regulus... Yes, I agree, Missy. Food is sacred. And when you hunt, you have to hunt. Like the Native Americans, you have to hunt, with a sense of gratitude and respect, and honor for the sacrifice the animal gives you so that you can live. So Regulus is an interesting fixed star, and Regulus on the ascendant is different from Regulus on the midheaven. Regulus on the ascendant shows a very powerful ascent or rise in life. There's wealth and honors, prestige. It's an elevation in status in life, sometimes followed by great downfall. So there are occasions when that rise is accompanied by a shadow or a notoriety that goes with it. So Regulus on the ascendant, with him, let me pull up his chart as a matter while I'm thinking about it, would give him, I'm certainly from where he was, which was very rich, to the presidency. That is definitely the highest ascent or rise in status he's going to get next to becoming God. Well, I wouldn't call it an evil Mars. Regulus is not an evil Mars. So, the thing about it is, with all things, we have to look at the whole chart, right? So now I've got his chart up. As a matter of fact, I'll show you. I don't know if you can see this because sometimes the computer light doesn't like to show. You can see it? Yeah. Sorry, you're on my cell phone. Anyway, it's all the other stuff in the chart. It's all the other stuff in the chart that makes the difference, right? So Regulus, because he's Leo rising, the sun becomes the most important focal point of the chart. And with Regulus rising, one of the things we would look at is what is the sun doing, right? What aspects does the sun make? Where is his Uranus? Oh, there it is. What is it doing? What kind of stuff is it making? Like that tells us a lot more of the story, right? So his sun is at 22 Gemini, which is also conjunct a couple of fixed stars that have to do with wealth and that sort of stuff. It is near the North Node. Trine Jupiter retrograde in the second house. So money would have come very easily to him in this lifetime. The big challenge with him is that he's got the moon in Sagittarius. There's actually a lot of really good things in this chart, which is why he's popular. So in his own way, as much as I hate to give him credit for this, he is very charismatic and he would be very popular and very charming. And it kills me to give him even that much credit. But it's there, and even if I'm not a fan, other people clearly are. So these are not necessarily the big issues. Now, the big thing with his chart is he has a Mars on the ascendant, okay, because Mars is at 26 Leo, he's got 29 Leo rising. So Mars is right there on the ascendant from the 12th house side. So this in and of itself creates some problems because Mars is a hothead. It's also a bit of an egomaniac, and coming out of the 12th house, so close to the ascendant, it's going to make him overbearing and domineering, which he is. He is a bully. He's a big egocentric bully. Coming from the 12th house, a lot of this has to do with unconscious processes. So there's a lot of psychological stuff going on with him that drives any bully behavior that we might see. So one of the things that would be interesting with somebody with this placement, with Mars on the ascendant from the 12th house side, regardless of sign, but especially in Leo, right, is knowing that there's a lot of unconscious processes fueling this, is to look at exactly who it is where this bullying behavior kicks in, because that will tell you a lot about what's going on in here, because it's all unconscious biases and prejudices, right? And, we're all very familiar with that. Oh, now I'm itching. Okay. So The thing that I found really interesting about this particular chart, so he's a full moon, right, the eclipse, is he has a Venus-Saturn conjunction, excuse me, in Cancer. This is not by any stretch of the imagination a happy place. So this guy. All right, so Venus and Saturn conjunct in Cancer. I'm going to have to go back and find my post. I did a whole chart analysis of him. But typically, with Venus-Saturn conjunctions by themselves, they're very difficult in relationships. In a man's chart, a Venus-Saturn conjunction can make relationships difficult for him because he doesn't trust women. You know, he's not comfortable with intimacy. He doesn't trust relationships or intimate relationships. He's very suspicious of women, and there's always this sense of quid pro quo. So everything has a cost and everything can be bought. And if it can be bought, there's no real sense of loyalty. So with Venus-Saturn people, loyalty is a big thing because they believe that loyalty, you know, everything can be bought. And if you can be bought, you don't really have a sense of loyalty. It's kind of like a big catch-22 with these kids. It is problematic at best, right? Now, Venus-Saturn conjunct in Cancer, that's a whole other box of black spiders. I'm not going to assign this to everybody with Venus-Saturn conjunct in Cancer, and certainly not every man with Venus-Saturn conjunct in Cancer. But I will say in this particular chart, for him, there are huge issues with women and his mother. He sees women as whores. I literally, remember, everything can be bought, you know, and he sees women as commodities that can be bought and sold. And he does, like prostitutes, he sees women as prostitutes. Which, given his elitist kind of mentality, is not good. And he may actually have a preference for them, but that's a whole other conversation, right? And also, if you look at his history, like, he's the only, have you noticed the only American woman he got involved with was, and married was, what was her name? Oh my God, help me here. There's only one woman that was American that he married, and he only married her because she got pregnant on him and wouldn't get an abortion, so he basically had to marry her. She literally forced him into a marriage. And of course, he divorced her, a year later? Like, he was barely married to her. So he's got a real issue and aversion to American women. Most likely because American women, like, are very independent and aren't going to put up with this crap. Like, dude, what are you going to give me other than money? I have my citizenship. Marla, yes, Marla, right? So that was very telling. And the other thing is, if you look, like, this guy, I'm not going to get too much into this, but in terms of a psychosexual profile, remember, Mars in that 12th house, there's a whole lot of, anyway, so it would take some unraveling to explain how to come to this conclusion. we're not going to do that class here. But with him, he's got some real weird sexual stuff. And I'm almost convinced, looking at this chart, that there's some serious homoerotic stuff he just doesn't want to deal with. So he's got some real issues with men and sex and being attracted to men or wanting daddy's approval or something or whatever. I don't know. It's weird stuff, right? So typically, in stuff like this, what you get are guys that really get off on, and it's not just Venus and Saturn and Cancer, so don't take these as isolated things. I'm just saying, as with all the stuff going on in his chart, with all this Gemini and with this particular chart, one of the things that I would have expected is somebody who gets off on watching his wife with other men. Well, Adolf Hitler apparently had a thing with scat and his cousins and driving his cousins to suicide. So I can only imagine what the hell he was doing in bed. But with this chart, what we look are typically guys who get off on watching their wives with other men, guys who get off on being cuckolded, guys who are into threesomes or like just weird stuff. But there's always a second guy involved with this because they're working through like homoerotic stuff. And listen, I'm not going to fault anybody for having unusual taste because these are the things that make life interesting. But I will hold people... I will hold people's feet to the fire for having unusual taste like this, and then, like, literally wagging their finger at women for being women or whatever. Like, the issues, dude. He's got serious issues. Anyway, if you look at his kids, Look at his sons. Have you noticed? Wow. Have you noticed that the boys look nothing alike? Have you noticed that the boys look nothing alike? Right? So if you look at the one blonde boy and Ivanka, right? They clearly look like their brother and sister, right? So it's not like there's a big mix of genes in that gene pool. But the dark-haired one, there's nothing about him that looks like the other two. Nothing, right? And I know there was an episode where Ivanka or Ivana apparently had some weird reality show she was trying to promote, and she was the star of the reality show, and it was all about, being an international cougar or whatever. And in this thing, she was like, "Oh, darling, I have such a weakness for Italian men. Oh, I love them, dark and swarthy," right? Yeah. So think about this for a second, just as a possibility. So we have a man who more than likely has a thing about watching his wife with other women or having threesomes with another man with his wife, this kind of a thing, and possibly cuckolding. And now we've got two boys, three kids, two boys and one girl, and one of the boys looks nothing like the other two. As a matter of fact, one of the boys looks like he could have been fathered by the very type of man that the wife has, such a weakness for, darling. I would bet you good money that the dark-haired son is not his, that the dark-haired son is some Italian man who banged Ivana when she was married to Donald, and he has raised that boy as his own. Bet you. And I'll bet you that Italian man was not because of some affair he didn't know about. I will bet you that Italian man or dark-haired man that fathered this boy was there in the room with full knowledge of Don, because he was there participating. And that's why they weren't sure who the father was, and that's why she kept the baby, and that's why he raised them as his own. Bet you. Nope, not by another woman. No, this is Ivana's son. This is definitely, listen, women know, with babies come out of us, we know who our kids are. This is definitely Ivana's son, but that is not his father. But listen, this is all conjecture on my part. This is all just speculation. But the next time you see those boys on TV, look at them. Look at them. And remember, Ivana has publicly said that I have such a weakness for Italian men. I would bet you anything that boy is the result of a threesome. Bet you. And that's why, because think about it. So if you had a threesome with your wife, or if you were in some kind of weird thing where you're watching your wife have sex with another man or whatever, like I probably shouldn't be saying this on YouTube, so because this is a family channel, right? But anyway, if that were the case, and then she ends up pregnant, who knows whose baby it is? Is it mine? We don't know. We were both there at the same time. Well, I mean, I don't know. We'd have to look at how old the son is, because clearly that's when it happened, But yeah, I would bet you good money. So if that's the case, I can only imagine what the Russians have that is so interesting as far as his personal proclivities. Because I don't know. I mean, I've heard some stories, so this is nothing. This is nothing. I mean, good Lord, Hitler supposedly had a thing with poop. It doesn't get more bizarre than that. Right, exactly. And this is the thing, what adults do behind closed doors with other adults, I'm good with. Listen, y'all do whatever makes you happy, because if you're happy, I'm happy, we're all happy, life is good. You know what I mean? I'm good with it. But like I said, when you're all kinds of against other people, then you're doing stuff like this behind the scenes and acting so pious and sanctimonious, that's when I have a problem. It's the pious sanctimonious crap I got a real problem with. Yeah, it's a real thing. Oh my God. Oh. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I don't know. Maybe it's like playing in the mud pies. Or Play-Doh. I know. Sorry. I'm going to have to take Benadryl before I start getting on the video here. We're never going to play with Play-Doh with our kids and look at it the same way again. Yeah, see, and I heard that he had the prostitutes pee on a bed. No, son, please don't eat the Play-Doh. Yeah, I don't know. It will be interesting to see what comes out in the wash, and it'll all be coming out in the wash shortly. And so I'll tell you, though, the only thing I do feel bad about, especially in situations like this. So the thing about it is, like, you know, when you start talking, speculating about other people's private lives, right? Like, it's all very juicy and entertaining. Like, oh my God, can you believe that? Oh, you know, like, it's all very, like, fun, right? And, you know, sometimes inspiring, depending on what it is that they did. But, you know, the thing that I struggle with, the thing that I struggle with is, you know, it's the kids, right? So like his children, you know, didn't ask to participate in his public shaming. You know what I mean? And, you know, nobody wants to be the kid when every time somebody looks at you, they're thinking about your parents having like a cuckold threesome where your dad's watching your mom getting banged by somebody else. Like, that's just not, nobody signs up for that. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine if Hitler had kids? Like, not that he should, but I'm just saying, like, if he had kids and this poop thing were true, like every time somebody looked at this kid, be like, oh man, dude, isn't your dad like into poop or something? Right, exactly. So that's where it gets a little weird, you know, and so I don't like to get too much into, you know, the speculation about these charts, but like, this is just like, you'd have to be blind not to see that there's one of these things do not look like the other. You know, so, and I thought that was interesting, connecting the dots here. That's as close to conspiracy theories as I get. I know. Some kids just don't have a chance. Jesus, the parents they come in with. I don't know that Melania's parents can help her with anything. And, you know, Melania, I think her chart is online somewhere, you can go find it, but I'm pretty sure Melania has like a ton of planets in the second house. Girlfriend is all about money. You know who else has, here's something interesting. Do you know who else has a ton of planets in the second house? You ready? Paul Ryan, the man who's trying to break the piggy bank of Social Security so that they can use it for their own spending. Ton of planets in the second house. That man is all about the money. He is nothing nice, that spineless jellyfish. Whew. Okay. All right. So, all right. Oh my God, an hour and a half. You guys are worse than talking to my best girlfriends ever. So you're officially now my best girlfriends ever. And with that said, ladies, I am going to have to end this phone call because I do actually have to get something productive done today. Thank you so much for jumping online and talking to me, because I really, this was not a good day. We were really not starting out as a good day. I was literally seeing prison orange in my future. Whew, it was not good. It was not good, but I feel 100% better now. And, now I can get something done. So you guys go be awesome. And like I said, I'm going to work on the chart for these kids. Generation Millennial and Congress, and the eclipses, because I think tied all together, this is going to be really interesting stuff. And it will help really expand on the understanding how eclipses work and the potential power in eclipses. So it'll be good stuff. And that'll be a couple of days getting up, but I'll get up there. So I'm out of here, ladies. Out of here. And remember, around that full moon, big sexy time. Big sexy time. But also people are going to be very easily buttons pushed. So, you know, try not to set off the crazies and use all that extra energy to go have happy time with your happy persons. Bye.